I'm blind, I'm deaf, I want to be a ref. How many of you have heard that statement before? Well, although it's a joke, the truth is, you really don't. Because football is a game that favors the best goal scorers and the most creative midfielders. They're the ones that get all the spotlight and love from the fans. Defenders and goalkeepers, on the other hand, yeah, they get their fair share of appreciation as well, but rarely ever on the same level. For managers as well, unless you're one of the very best or are currently in amazing form, you'll often find a lot less love from the fans. But referees, on the other hand, well, not only are they never appreciated, they're almost always hated by just about every side. Fans will blame them for just about anything. Players always test them and rarely ever show respect. But mostly, you'll never be remembered for doing a good job, only for the mistakes you make. However, there was one, a guy who would almost always make the right choice and rarely ever make mistakes. A man who had no bias or favorites on the pitch, because he had no alliances to any club or player, but only to the spirit of the game itself. A guy who, amongst even players themselves, had a deep amount of respect for and even a little fear, because of his no-nonsense attitude, military background, and a set of eyes that could look deep down through your soul, slicing through some of even the biggest egos in the game. His name was Pierluigi Collina, and he is easily the most legendary, iconic, and feared referee of all time. And we're gonna look at his insane life that eventually built the foundation for his iconic legacy. Because being a referee is incredibly difficult. Basically, no matter what you do, the crowd is going to be there yelling and screaming, criticizing every small thing you do. But Pierluigi Collina was legendary because he always took it to the next level. There's no other referee in history that took his job more seriously than he did. In fact, you could even say he might have taken things to insane levels. As before refereeing the World Cup final, he said in his own words, "I had to ask for VHS tapes of both teams. I then locked myself in a room for a day and a half, 36 hours total, taking notes and watching every minute of every match." Yeah, as if refereeing wasn't already hard enough. It really is a difficult task. And as a referee, you really need to focus, stay locked in, and block out all the noise. And thanks to today's sponsor, Raycon, you can do just that. Not only do Raycon's everyday earbuds have amazing active noise cancellation, but they also have an incredible 32-hour battery life, with a new quick charge function that lets just 10 minutes of charge give you 90 minutes of battery. Plus their new ergonomic design with a wide variety of gel tip size options, so you can have the best custom fit. And of course, beautifully crisp sound quality. Raycon's earbuds honestly just look incredible. Plus, they're sweat resistant, so I love using them for activities like going to the gym or exercising. Their protective case design is just stunning and supports wireless charging as well. And you get all these amazing features with Raycon in a wide variety of colors at a very affordable price. It's time to save big for Black Friday. So go to buyraycon.com/Raymar today and get up to 30% off site-wide. That's right, you'll get up to 30% off everything on Raycon's website when you go to buyraycon.com/Raymar. Thanks to Raycon for sponsoring this video. But anyways, you might be wondering just how does one actually become a referee, let alone one as iconic as Pierluigi Collina? Well, as you might imagine, many referees themselves have never really actually dreamed about becoming a referee. And for Collina, the same thing was true. As a child, he always wanted to become a star athlete. And surprisingly enough, he initially wanted to be a basketballer, not a footballer. And while he would grow up to have a decent height, despite his love for the fast nature of basketball, deep down he knew he lacked the ability to take it to the next level. So Collina then took a look to his next favorite sport. He thought that with his size and skill, the best chance he had to make it onto the pitch was to play as a center back. And it was during his experience on the defense that he learned all the small tricks and techniques that players use to get the edge at winning back the ball, including subtle ways of fouling where referees wouldn't easily notice. And that perspective would be a very important aspect in Collina's eventual career that allowed him to be so well known as a ref that had great judgment on the pitch. But anyways, Collina's days as a footballer would be far from reaching the top level. And it was at the age of 17 when Pierluigi Collina would eventually be persuaded to leave the pitch as a footballer, but return instead with a whistle in his hand as a referee. Collina would then go through a referee course, and he would become a complete natural at his job. His experience as a center back really played a big part in his decision making, and over time he would quickly be known for his refereeing aptitude. But also back then, Italy used to have mandatory military service, and his experience with military training, discipline, and management skills only further added to his authority on the pitch. Collina would develop a very stoic attitude, being able to stand on his decision and back it up no matter how much the players disagreed, with the toughness and mentality he developed in the military. And even during all that, Collina was pursuing a degree in economics, and that helped him become a sharper, more clever, and more intelligent referee that would help shape him to become the very respectable man he would become. Because the only thing scarier than a tough guy was a smart, tough guy. But towards the end of his military service and referee training, Pierluigi Collina would eventually develop a severe case of alopecia, which is basically a condition that leads to the loss of hair. But Collina's alopecia was extreme, and he lost all the hair on his face. And it was that condition that really gives him his signature look, especially because the lack of hair really puts emphasis on his eyes. And the only thing scarier than a smart tough guy was a smart tough guy with an intimidating stare and deep blue killer eyes that could pierce through your soul. Because despite all the incredible qualities Collina had as a person, his iconic look was really the cherry on top of the cake that truly made him a frightening presence on the pitch. And it was around that time that people had began to call him Kojak, who was basically a detective character from this old American drama, who just also happened to be bald, tough as nails, and overall a badass. Because that's exactly what Pierluigi Collina was. And after all those years, he had finally been promoted to referee in the Italian 3rd Division. Collina was already building a reputation for always making the right calls, knowing how to handle players, and above all else, staying completely fair, unbiased, and objective in his refereeing. You might think that most footballers would respect, listen, and accept Collina's refereeing decisions just because he was a scary-looking guy who was 6'2" or 188 centimeters tall and bigger than most players on the pitch who also just happened to be military trained as well. However, it also goes back to the fact that he's incredibly educated and smart. Collina knew how to speak well and talk to the players. He knew how to converse with them, calm them down, and was incredibly charismatic in his approach. Collina could also speak French, Spanish, and English on top of his Italian, something that players just had to respect, as he would often talk to them in their own language. And the fact that he would take time to show them respect by studying and learning about players before the match, including their full names, hobbies, and whatever random facts he can find, even if it was as seemingly insignificant as players in the 3rd Division. And what would only add to his accuracy and consistency when refereeing matches was the way that Collina also studied each individual player's playstyles and tendencies on the pitch, always going above and beyond to prepare as much as he possibly could before the match. Collina believed that a referee at the bare minimum should understand the way that players act, study the context of specific squads, managers, and even formations, and analyze how each factor could affect the interactions on the pitch. He also believed it was especially important to take a deeper dive into the personalities of players, trying to see which ones were more likely to cause problems like diving, unnecessary fouling, time wasting, and even trash talking. And trying to get all that information back then when statistics and other data weren't nearly as available as they are today really shows how Collina went above and beyond to do his job as best as he possibly could. Heck, relatively speaking, I don't even feel like most referees of this modern era put in nearly as much effort as he did. But above everything else, the way that he refereed fairly and objectively without having any bias is probably what made him the most respected of referees. And there's no better proof of this than when Collina would referee the club he supported as a child. Because there's nothing that gets you to distrust or dislike a ref than the slightest hint or trace of bias. But for Pierluigi Collina, even though it's been known that he grew up supporting the Rome-based club Lazio, he clearly showed no favorites, as Lazio would not have a single win in any of their first 10 matches while Collina was overseeing the game. With such an incredible combination of ability, attitude, and an impeccably proven track record, it would take Collina only 3 years from refereeing the third-tier Italian league to move up all the way to Serie A. And if you're wondering, 3 years is a mind-blowingly rapid rise in the world of refereeing, because moving up as a referee to the very highest league, especially within the top 5 leagues, assuming you move up every single year, takes on average 8 to 9 years. So Collina's record time promotion is not only a testament to how incredible he was at his job, but also to how much respect and credibility he earned not only from the players, but also from club management, fans, and fellow colleagues. Even after only overseeing 43 Serie A matches, which all things considered wasn't all that much for a top-flight referee, FIFA would still honor his hard work with the opportunity to begin refereeing for major international tournaments. Firstly, he would go on from refereeing Olympic matches to the Olympic final itself, which might not be a big deal now, but Olympic football was seen as much more of an honor back then. And in 1998, Collina would be called up to start refereeing for the most prestigious, high-paying, and hard-to-land position of becoming a World Cup referee. And with the progression of his career, it would only make sense that Collina would be chosen to referee in his very first Champions League, eventually making his way up to referee in the Champions League final. In the world of referees, Collina was doing something that had never been done before, as he would be named the IFFHS World's Best Referee for a record 6 years in a row, the most of any referee. For them, that's like winning 6 consecutive Ballon d'Ors, just untouchably legendary. He would even win Italy's Best Goalkeeper award for an insane 7 times and be inducted into the Italian Football Hall of Fame, being the first ever non-player or manager to be included. And even though Italian football went through one of the biggest sports scandals in history, when clubs like Juventus conspired with the Italian Refereeing Association to fix matches and give them favorable calls in exchange for monetary payments, eventually known as the Calciopoli scandals, despite wiretapping investigations leading to evidence and implications of dozens and dozens of football directors, executives, managers, and referees themselves. Unsurprisingly, the one name that had no connections to any of this corruption was, of course, no other than Pierluigi Collina. Collina was also chosen to referee the most difficult, heated, and high-profile matches in football, because really, there was no better man for the job. Whenever countries with history or current geopolitical tensions faced up, especially in the World Cup, Collina was put on the pitch to watch over the players, because above all else, players knew it was a proven fact that no other referee had more integrity, respect, and authority in the match and for the sport than Pierluigi Collina. Even one of the scariest and most intimidating footballers of all time, Oliver Kahn could do nothing but show respect to the utter authority of Collina, as even though he would basically lose every single match refereed by Collina, like Euros matches, a Champions League final, and even a World Cup final, Kahn would not once question his integrity, instead going on to hilariously say, "He is a world-class referee. There's no doubt about that. But does he bring me any luck? Clearly not." Although Collina never did manage to referee a Euros final, which was the only major match left in his career, FIFA and Serie A would extend the age limits of their referees just to see him on the pitch a little bit longer. It only makes sense that a referee so loved, respected, and legendary would be honored as the only one to ever make the cover of a video game when he was featured in the front of Pro Evolution Soccer. Many people might debate who is the greatest at whatever different aspect in football you can want to talk about. But at least when it comes to referees, there was no conversation. Only Pierluigi Collina.